Welcome to today's podcast of Everyone Has the Freedom to Choose. This is Deb King. Join us for today's Cornerstone Conversation, Grief, Thriving, the Shoelace, and the Sacred Work of Healing. There was a time when compartmentalizing was how I survived the painful, hard places of life. I would take the grief, the disappointment, the emotional ache, the heartbreak, the unanswered questions, and place them quietly in a box somewhere deep inside my heart. I believed that if I could simply put them away, time would eventually do what I did not know how to do. Time would heal. Time would soften. Time would somehow make those hidden places whole. But then there was the shoelace. Out of nowhere, some unsuspecting person would step on my shoelace. Not literally, perhaps, but in the way people sometimes do. A small comment, a minor inconvenience, a tiny infraction, something so minimal it should not have carried the weight of an explosion. And yet the response would come with force. The shoelace was never the real issue. The shoelace was only the trigger. What came rushing out was not merely irritation over the moment. It was the force of years of unprocessed pain, grief, sorrow, disappointment, and emotion that had been carefully boxed away but never healed. We often call that kind of reaction a bad temper, and maybe sometimes it is. But for those of us who have learned to compartmentalize, it is often not so simple. The outburst is not always about anger alone. It is the sound of a dam breaking. And when that dam breaks, damage follows. Damage to relationships, damage to our loved ones, damage to unsuspecting people who only happen to step on a shoelace tied to something much deeper than they could see. There is no true healing for anyone, least of all ourselves, when we refuse to grieve what has caused us pain. We cannot keep hiding sorrow, disappointment, shame, anger, betrayal, loss, and heartache in secret compartments and expect our souls to thrive. Sooner or later, what we bury will ask to be seen. We must be honest with ourselves. We must give ourselves permission to take the time, to face the fear of what we might find, and to ask the brave questions. What pain have I hidden away? What sorrow have I minimized? What anger have I refused to name? What shame have I locked in a box and pretended was not there? And most importantly, we must be willing to invite God into those hidden places. Often we think grief belongs only to death. We associate mourning with the loss of someone we love, and certainly that kind of grief is sacred and profound. But death is far from the only thing we need to grieve. We may need to grieve illness. A hard or debilitating illness not only brings physical pain, it can cost us mobility, freedom, finances, relationships, independence, community, dreams, and the rhythm of a once flourishing life. Even when healing comes, there may still be losses to acknowledge. There may be emotions that need permission to speak. We may need to grieve the marriage we dreamed of that ended in divorce. We may need to grieve the economic challenges that forced us to sell a home, relocate, or start over in a place we never imagined living in. We may need to grieve relationships and friendships we once believed would last forever, only to find ourselves feeling betrayed, abandoned, or forgotten. We may need to grieve the questioning of job security, the inability to find work in the field we studied for, the weight of debt from a degree we hoped would open doors, or the financial loss that changed the future we had carefully planned. All of these losses matter. When we are forced to face the reality that some things will never be what we hoped they would be, at least not in the way we imagined, we must give ourselves permission to grieve. Not to stay trapped in sorrow, but to stop pretending sorrow is not there. Choosing to grieve is not surrendering to defeat. It is one of the ways we make room to thrive, even in the darkest seasons of our lives. When we allow God to enter the midst of our grief, we open the windows of our hearts to His incredible love. Inviting Him into those wounded places invites His healing, restorative power to move within us. That holy restoration becomes the catalyst for thriving. In grief, an exchange is needed. We bring our heaviness to God and give it to Him. Then we choose to receive what He gives in return: beauty, joy, grace, mercy, love, and the strength to thrive again. Ashes for beauty, mourning for joy, despair for praise, fragility for rootedness. Isaiah says, "And provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty. Instead of ashes, the oil of joy. Instead of mourning, and a garment of praise. Instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord, for the display of His splendor." Isaiah 61:3, NIV. Through God, we become oaks of righteousness, planted by the Lord to display His splendor. When we invite God into the most sacred hidden places of our hearts, we find freedom. We learn to live well, love deeply, and thrive again with passion and purpose. Love covers a multitude of sins. We often think that means a person. But what if love represents our love for God, our relationship with Him? His love covers a multitude of sin, not just ours, but those who have caused hurt and pain. His love, what if love heals, restores, and uses all things in our lives, regardless of the source, for our good? It does. This frees us from holding on to the pain, removes bitterness and resentment, and replaces them with beauty and joy. Love gives us the ability to praise even in the midst of grief. Praising God in the midst of our despair shifts our focus. It lifts our eyes from burden, sorrow, pain, and the crushing weight that sometimes comes with life, and turns our gaze toward the power of God. Praise does not deny our grief. It creates space for an exchange. It gives us the ability to say, "God, I do not understand this. I did not want this. I would not have chosen this, but I trust you here." Allowing ourselves to grieve and inviting God into our grief, relationship, heartache, or challenge puts us in a position to hear God's heart on. What to do now? Where do we go from here? How do we pivot and thrive? Can we even thrive? And in that sacred place, love begins to do what pain could never do. This is what Jeremiah says about those who are willing to grieve. God still has a plan. "For I know the plans I have for you," declares the Lord, "plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29:11, NIV. He is faithful, this I know without question. He has done it for me. Thanks for listening and being a part of our conversation. If this message meets you where you are today, share it with others who may need the same reminder. For more encouragement and resources, visit my website at everyonehasthefreedomtochoose.com.